Kip, what's up, man? So good to see you. I saw you like 48 hours ago, but it's good to see your smiling face this morning as well. I didn't get enough of you this weekend.
Yeah, it's a good sign that you still wanted to record. I was like, well, depending on how the week goes, Ryan's like, you know what? Maybe I should go solo on those.
I actually learned something about you. Well, I guess I already knew. I did know this, but I saw it in action. You and I are so much alike, and it's funny to me. It was actually a little bit funny. I chuckled a couple of times because I would look around and I'm like, where's Kip? I'm thinking, well, maybe he's on the boat. Maybe he's, having some lunch. Maybe he's taking a nap on a lawn chair. No, you were moving laundry machines around. You were fixing sprinklers. You were reprogramming door locks. I'm like, yep, this is why Kip and I like each other so much, because taking a vacation is just not something that resonates with either of us.
Yeah. You got to get something done to feel good about how it went. Yeah.
I mean, you were on it the entire time, but you did let loose a little bit, and we had a good time. The craziest thing is when my boys wanted me to jump on the tube with them, and I jump on the tube, and you're like, this is my moment to just get back at Mickler for all the bullshit I've had to deal with over the past several years. And you turned and whipped us around, and then I eventually fell off. And I was getting back on the thing, and you took off before I was even on the thing, and I backflipped over the back end of it right back into the water. I'm like, damn that Kip.
Yeah, that's my I usually do that whenever I'm pulling anybody on tubes. Is like once they have a hand onto the tube itself, I'm like, it's go time. Good luck getting on.
Yeah. And you did a cool thing with my boys, my two oldest boys. You're like, all right, when I make this movement, this spinning movement, I want you guys to switch spots on the tube. And they did. They successfully pulled it off. I was impressed.
Which is highly entertaining to watch.
Oh, so good. So funny. But no, I appreciate you letting my family come up, and we had a really good time with you, man. So, yeah.
Good. We're glad we
with that
made
said,
it happen.
should we get into headlines today?
Yeah, let's do it. You go.
All right. So I was looking through some headlines, and I often do. I use this program. It's actually really cool. It's called Flipboard, I believe. Let's see. Flipboard. Have you heard of it?
Yep.
It's a cool program because you can basically customize the news that you want to receive. So some of the news things that I get are, let's see, there's like a daily, like a for you. So it's all cultivated towards you: leadership, technology, business, conservative views, mindfulness. So I get a lot of different things. And I was going through some of these the other day about mindfulness, and I don't have a specific headline, but in it I was learned a little bit more about like vulnerability, opening up to your spouse. And I made this comment or this post on social media, and it enraged people. I was amazed. I didn't think it was controversial. Like, I wasn't trying to rile people up. And basically what I said is this, let me just pull this up so I'm not just trying to remember here. I said, no woman wants a vulnerable man. They'll tell you they do, and they're very convincing, but they'll resent you the moment you show any sign of weakness, obviously. Be humble, be honest, but do not be vulnerable with the woman in your life. So, how can you be humble and honest without being vulnerable? Very simply, always present a solution or path forward, coupled with your humility and honesty. Anything less is complaining and reeks of weakness to her. And I put some context in the caption, but I did not know it would fire people up the way that it did. I actually didn't think it was all that controversial. I don't think the post itself is controversial. I think what was controversial to a lot of people is the use of their sacred word, vulnerability.
Yeah.
And that's where I think a lot of people took issue. And I don't even really want to address the subject itself. We can talk about that. You can jump on Instagram and we can discuss and debate. And we had some really good discussion about it. But it's amazing how quickly people will react versus respond when you use a word that they don't like. And they won't even dive into the context of what we're talking about. What was fascinating to me is that most of the comments that dissented from what I said, and that's fine, we all have agreements and disagreements, weren't actually really dissenting all that far away from what I was talking about with the context. It was that they took issue with my use of the word vulnerability.
Yeah.
And the reason I bring this up is that it leads to a greater discussion in society where I think we've really, really lost the ability to have deep and meaningful conversations because one party, whether it's me or another, gets so hung up on one word without really considering how is it that this person means that? Or how do they define the word vulnerability? And rather than jumping to their emotional reaction, really just stopping and pausing and asking themselves, well, let me try to understand what this person means. And I'm guilty of this. I'm not free from falling into the same trap. But I think if all of us, especially as men, because we do dictate a lot of the conversations that take place in our circles, if we can learn to be a little bit more discerning and we can learn to not be so heavily vested in a specific word or concept, and instead really strive to understand what people are talking about before we interject our own 2 cents, I think we'll have much healthier discussions, and I think we'll come to much better understandings of each other. We may not ultimately agree, but at least we can maybe see things in a way that we haven't seen before. And I always say this because I think it's important. I'm not just pointing fingers at the people who disagreed with me. I'm looking at myself in the mirror and asking myself, where have I looked at conversations that people have had or word choices that they've used that have offended me? And if I chose not to be offended in those moments, what could have I learned had I opened myself up to the possibility that maybe there's something I can learn here? So yeah, not a specific headline, but I saw a bunch of things come up, which is why I made that post in the first place. And it was very interesting. Very, very interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, I love it. Well, just to add to what you said, I mean, I can't help but think like we don't even look at why we're mad about it. Right? So like that's level one. Level one is, understanding your perception and your perspective versus mine and being curious to seek to understand, right, before being understood. And then the other part is, why is this making me mad? Mm-hmm. Why am I getting upset? Why am I triggered? Why is my heart rate going up? What does that say? What interpretations do I have? How is this tied to my identity that I feel threatened by this? Like, man, we don't even do that number. And I find it fascinating. It's just another indicator on the dashboard of whenever we get triggered and we're upset about something. Why? Why are you getting mad? And what does that say? And is that and should you or should you not? And should you pivot? And understand, even being empathetic and understanding yourself, let alone other people, is it's really interesting how we do things like that as humans, but yet we never ask that question.
I think it's a good question. Maybe it's maturity, maybe it's having my own battles that I've wrestled with specifically over the past several years, where I've really had to do a lot of self-reflection on the way that I was showing up, not only for my family but for everybody, you and people listening to this podcast, and the way I'd show up on social media. And to be honest, I'm embarrassed. I'm embarrassed about the way that I showed up for my family. I'm embarrassed about the way that I even showed up here with you at times, or the way that I showed up for people on social media. And I noticed myself getting triggered a lot and, resorting to insulting and demeaning and demoralizing responses that had nothing to do with the actual discussion at hand. And I've really tried to become more aware of that. I'm not perfect at it. I think I'm doing a lot better. You guys correct me if I'm wrong. But what's worked for me is when I notice my blood boiling and the temperature is getting a little hotter, is just not responding at all. Not reacting, maybe even asking a question as opposed to making an assertion or an assumption. Assumptions have got me into a lot of trouble. So really working on being conscious of how I respond to people in a way that fosters discussion and dialogue, not tampers it and cuts it off at the knees.
Yeah. So, I mean, in the spirit of this past week being Independence Day, I was talking with the kids a little bit about our founding fathers and who they were. And I didn't realize how young they were. So let's go off the list here. So on July 4th, 1776, here are the ages of our founding fathers. James Monroe, 18. Aaron Burr, 20. Alexander Hamilton, 21. James Madison, 25. Thomas Jefferson, 33. John Adams, 40. And George Washington, 44. And I can't help but think, I don't think people at that age have the same mindset or even close to what these gentlemen were at those ages. And I've heard this all my life, and Ryan, I'm sure you've heard this, right? Kind of this sentiment of like, don't grow up too quick, and take your time, and figure your stuff out, and like almost like we encourage our children or our young adults not to grow up too quickly. And maybe perhaps said another way, don't be about something too quickly. And maybe we have that wrong. Just maybe we should say, you know what? Live a life of fulfillment and purpose and meaning as soon as possible. And if I had to put a pin on what these guys did, it was living a life of purpose. Look at what they were fighting for at that age. Awesome. And I think as I reflect, I'm thinking, man, I need to be about something way more than I even am now. And we shouldn't be waiting to get older to be showing up powerfully, because here's a great example of 7 men that were showing up in a very serious way and fighting a serious battle. And they were young, in my opinion. So it's crazy.
It is crazy. I didn't even know. I knew they were young, but I didn't know 18 years old. I was looking it up as you were saying that. Nathan Hale, who's largely considered America's first spy, was 21 when he died. He's the gentleman who is credited with saying, "I regret, but I have one life to lose for my country." 21 years old. Look at what 21-year-olds are doing now. Look at what we were doing as 21. Look what I'm doing now as a 43-year-old.
Totally.
I should be George freaking Washington, and I got 1 year to accomplish what he accomplished by the time he was 44 years old.
Yeah, and I'm already too late.
Yeah. I think it's easy, though, to discount. And as you're hearing that, I can hear people saying, well, life was different back then. We lived shorter lifespans, yada, yada, yada. I mean, sure, maybe that's true, but I never really bought into the trope of like age is just a number. I'm like, no, there's actually something to it. Yeah. Because I know that there's, like, generally speaking, an 18-year-old is going to be more immature than a 45-year-old, right? But I also know as you get older, my body's not as quick as it used to be. It doesn't recover as fast. We were on that tube, and I'm like, give me this hurt. This is miserable. 20 years ago, I would have never in a million years have said that, So there are real things that are happening physiologically to our bodies where age is not just a number, but also you get to decide. There's a guy by the name of Mark Sisson, or Sisson is how you say it. He's a health guy. Dude, I saw a picture of him. He's like tan, he's lean, he's shredded, he's got abs. The guy looks like he's probably 55. He's 70 years old. It's like, what are we doing with our lives? And are we squandering our lives on stupid, insignificant, trivial bullshit? Or are we actually engaged in meaningful things? This goes back actually to that conversation that I had yesterday about vulnerability. A couple of people said, this bullshit, what you're saying is the reason men are killing themselves. Like, wait, you're saying the reason men are depressed and killing themselves is because I'm encouraging them to have a plan of action when they talk with their wives about their problems, not just complain and gripe? Like, that's what you're saying? Because I think the real issue of men killing themselves is lack of purpose and meaning. And also not a lack of opening up to their wives, but a loneliness epidemic with other male friends. So if you can enlist, this is my theory on it, if you can enlist other men into something meaningful and purpose-driven, I think that will tamp down a lot of the depression you're dealing with. and the anxiety and the stress and everything else of life. It has nothing to do with whether or not you talk to your wife about how you're feeling.
Well, and another way, just another way of saying what you said in that post is it's the difference of having a victim mindset. And someone with a victim mindset lacks hope because it's outside their control and they're not acting on it. The number one thing if you're in a victim mindset and you feel like a victim and you feel hopeless, guess what the number one thing is to do to change that? Act on it. Actually do something about it. Have a plan. The minute you have a plan, you step into the path of empowerment. It's fascinating. Now, that step is hard for some, depending on where we're at, but that's how you move from hopelessness, is actually dealing in reality and going, here's what's on the table. Now, what am I going to do about it? And take action. That's how you move beyond that. And that's what you're saying.
The only part of that I take a little issue with, and I want to hear what you have to say about this. I'm actually kind of tired of hearing people say it's hard for things that aren't hard. Yeah. And like we do that. Well, it's like, oh, going to the gym is hard. No, it's not. It's not hard. Like, you just set your alarm and you make a decision, and then in the morning, and it's going to be hard in the morning, but you just make a decision and you get up and you get out of your climate controlled bed, your bed that might even adjust to your like height and in your sleep temperature. And then you put your clothes on. You didn't have to like go shear a sheep. You put your clothes on that some poor kid in China made for you. Okay. And then you put your shoes on and then you walk out to your truck in a climate controlled vehicle and it drives you from your house 3 to 5 to 10 miles away to the gym in a matter of minutes. And then you go into this climate controlled build. You see what I'm saying? Like we've normalized this concept of things being harder than they actually are. And I think if we had some perspective on it and said, this is not hard. This is the expectation. This is the standard. This is the baseline. I wonder if more people would be willing to do it if they got over this concept of it being hard all the time.
Well, and maybe another way to look at, and I totally agree with you, is that some things are hard. Like, get over it.
Yeah, good point.
Like, that's the other thing. We need to normalize that growth is on the backside of difficulty. Like, we were talking about this, or I was talking about it with someone, is in my mind, I was like, how do I have some leadership guides around having difficult conversations? And my mindset was, how do I make it easy to do? And I came to the conclusion a couple weeks ago of, actually, it's never going to be easy. You need to be courageous and stop making things wrong just because they may be difficult. And that's part of the problem, because we live in a world that it's like, well, nothing should be difficult. Oh, marriage shouldn't be difficult. Going to the gym shouldn't be difficult. None of these things should be difficult. Says who? And ironically enough, we all know that on the backside of difficulty is always growth. But yet we want to grow, but not at the expense of having to do anything courageous or difficult.
Yeah, definitely. I'm pulling up a couple quotes here that always stand out to me. Here's two. So this is from Bruce Lee. He says, "Do not pray for an easy life. Pray for the strength to endure a difficult one." John F. Kennedy says, "Do not pray for easy lives. Pray to be stronger men." Like, life's not supposed to be easy. We can enjoy the comforts of modern times, and I do. Don't get me wrong, I do. But also, be careful, because that's a trap. It really is a trap that we need to avoid and be very, very cautious of stepping into.
Yeah, totally. Okay, we're going to jump to, we got some good ones, man. In fact, some good ones that I even flagged certain ones because we had quite a bit from Instagram. To follow Mr. Mickler on Instagram, that's at Ryan Mickler, both for X and Instagram. Skylar by Tendorp, best habits for men to form in marriage. I'm getting married in a few weeks and I want to be the best husband I can be. Best habits for men to form in marriage.
These kind of questions are, frankly, they're a little hard for me because if I went through a divorce 2 years ago. So anything that I say, it would be easy to say, well, you went through a divorce. What do you know? Well, I do know. I know it worked because I was married for 18 years and I know it doesn't work. So yeah. Take that for what it's worth. I'm always going to try to be as honest as I can be and say, hey, when I was doing these things, this works. And when I stop doing these things, this doesn't work. So I would say habits to eliminate first and foremost, any vices that you may have. For me, it was excessive drinking, and I really let that come between my ex-wife and me and my kids too. I let that really drive a wedge between the relational dynamics I had with my family. I regret that, but it is what it is. And I've learned from those things, and I'm trying to rebuild relationships specifically with my kids that I drove the wedge in between. For some guys, it's pornography. I talk with a lot of guys and women who their husbands or the guys themselves are addicted to pornography, and it drives a wedge. You may not even feel it. It may not. That's the insidious thing about it. Even when I was drinking, I really didn't feel like I was that disconnected. Now that I'm sober, I look back and think, oh my goodness, I told you already I was embarrassed about the way I was showing up. I didn't even recognize it. I think the same can be true for something like pornography. If you're engaged in that, I guarantee you're treating your wife differently. Sex is probably not as connected. It's not as intimate. You really don't know what intimate physical connection actually is or what it could mean. You're just there solely for the purpose of getting off. Maybe you're comparing her to the big boob porn star you watched last night. And now you have this woman who, maybe she's got some scars or she's got some stretch marks from your children. And you're comparing to this, manicured human blow up doll, essentially. And of course, there's going to be a comparison there. So think about what vices you have and what you can do to get rid of those things. But I'd also say, for me, the biggest thing is just making sure that there's structured time for communication. You said something as just kind of a throwaway a minute ago. You said, I was talking with my kids about the founding fathers. That was kind of a throwaway line for you, but it was really, really insightful, because if you listen, what it means is that you deliberately carved out time to talk about something that doesn't just happen organically, but something is meaningful and significant with your children. And when you do that with your wife, whether that's, hey, every Monday we're going to talk about finances, and every Sunday we're going to maybe do something at home where we talk about God and the scriptures, or every day when I get home from work and she gets home or she's at home, we're going to talk about each other's day, or every morning we're going to do a little 5-minute powwow and try to make sure we're all on the same page for the same day. When I was doing those things, relationships, solid. The minute you stop talking, assumptions come into play, guesswork, distraction, temptation, all the things that will divide you and separate you from your spouse rather than draw you closer together.
Just making some notes. That's good. The three things, when I think about just my marriage and the things, I'll be honest, that are areas that I struggle with, that I know if they were habits, we'd be better off.
Yeah,
but
we
they're
know,
difficult.
Right? Yeah.
Some of these are still difficult for me. And the top one on my list is fully expressed. If I have an upset, I gotta talk about it. And I want to clarify, it's not a, hey, I need you to change something. It might be a request, but it also might just be telling her, hey, when this happened, it really made me upset or whatever. We literally had something 2 weeks ago, something came up, and out of respect to my wife, I'm not going to share it, but it really bothered me, really bothered me. And I thought about this. I'm I got to say something, because otherwise it's just going to show up how in my behavior. I'm going to wear it on my shoulders. I'm going to withdraw. I'm going to stonewall, other things. And so while we're driving, I'm hey, really want to have a conversation with you about something that's somewhat difficult. And I would just want to share how I feel. I don't even know what to do with it or if I even have a request out of it, but I want you to know that this bothered me, right? In a kind of a weird way, and I just want to put it out there. And I don't have no action items, to be frank, but I just want to tell you. I expressed that. She's like, oh, provided a little bit of clarity. I felt 100% better. No change required. It was fascinating how just being expressed is so valuable, because now she understands, and I feel understood a little bit. And I didn't stonewall. I didn't withhold communication, or I wasn't upset with her or anything, just because I was able to talk through it with her. And so being fully expressed is super critical to me. Second, I would say celebrate the differences. I got this from you, Ryan, and Asia and I, we have grown in a very great way from this perspective. We used to not parent the same way, and we used to make it bad. Like, oh, we need to be the same type of parent. And we eventually learned, we're not. I'm the dad, she's the mom. She's really great in certain areas. I'm really great in other areas, and we need to celebrate the differences that we bring to the table. The firmness that I bring to the table is great for our kids. The extra emotional empathy that she brings to the table is great for our kids. And we need to not demonize each other and our unique differences in the feminine and masculine. And then the last I'd say, and which I kind of got from you a little bit, is keep learning. You know, when I think about some of the best times that we're aligned, it's when we're communicating a lot. Now, the tough part is the margin to communicate a lot. And I think it was about last year, Asia was preparing for a marathon. And so she asked if I'd run with her in the evenings as she prepared. That was probably the best alignment that we had, because we just talked the whole time we were running about all kinds of things. We'd ask, not scripted, we didn't have an agenda, but we talked about our day. We talked about things that made us frustrated. We just asked questions, talked about a book we're reading, and we were just in a better position just because we had that margin of communication.
You guys are in way better shape than I am. You're talking while you're running. I'm like, I don't know how you do that, because there's no talking. There's only breathing when I'm running.
Well, this was last year, but yeah. That's funny.
A couple of things, if I can just kind of riff on what you said very briefly. You talked about fully expressed. Again, that goes back to vulnerability. Some guys might say that's vulnerability. I don't think that's vulnerability. I think it's just honesty and humility. Like, you're not there babbling. You're not there being weak. You're not there saying that you're inferior or this is an issue for you. Or, like, you fully acknowledge that, hey, this is something that is important to me, something that was a concern of mine. Again, I don't know what it is, but you didn't. The way you approached it made it a masculine approach. And I think that's one of the issues that I take, is that on one end of the extreme, when I say don't be vulnerable, some person might think I'm saying be emotionally closed off. I'm not saying that at all. And then on the opposite end of the spectrum, somebody might say, well, that means I just need to blabber and cry and bitch and moan and dump everything on my wife's lap. Well, no. Like, the way you share matters. If you went to her with tears in your eyes, I was offended and hurt and frustrated, you treat me like that, of course she's going to look less favorably at you. But you said, hey, babe, like, I need to talk with you. This is what I interpreted. This is how it came across. This is how I felt. What's up? And you gave her the space to share what she needed to share. There's nothing weak about that.
Yeah,
it's better. And then the other thing you said, and this is really important and something I'm learning with the relationship I have with my girlfriend, is you said celebrate the differences, but I wanted to kind of deviate just a little bit from that. One thing I'm learning, because I've seen this in previous relationships that I've had, is that I pick and choose the things that I like. And so
we talked about this a little bit.
Yeah. Like, I might really like her passion, but when it's directed at me, I don't like it so much. Right? So I might be upset or offended or chastise her for directing that at me. But then in the same sentence, I'm like, but keep being passionate about everything else. I don't think we get to decide, because what makes her, in this case, my girlfriend, so amazing is also the things that at times can be very challenging. And so I want her, not this part of her. I want all of it, even when it's directed at me. It's not always enjoyable, but I want all of it because I realize that the things that make it challenging at times are also the things I really, really admire her and respect. And I think for the first time, maybe in my life, I've come to a place where I just accept you for how you are. I don't need to change you. I don't need to fix you. I don't need to convince you to do life differently. You're a grown woman, and I love you for so many reasons, and we struggle for others, but I want all of it. And I don't need everything to be perfect, just like I would hope and expect that she would accept me. And if I can't deal with it, and she can't deal with it, then we can go our separate ways. But I'm not here to fix or change or correct or modify you. I love you just the way you are. And that's been a really powerful place for me to get to.
Yeah. It's so powerful. Well, and it allows agency and freedom in how they show up, right? Without this pretense of, eggshells and yuckiness that comes with the judgments. That's great, man. All right, Max, Noreen, how do you go about rebuilding yourself? How do you incorporate better habits and eliminate the bad ones? I feel like I'm making major progress compared to last year, but I want to do more and bring more value to the world.
So rebuilding yourself is so broad. And what I've seen a lot of times when guys come into the Iron Council, for example, that's our exclusive brotherhood, is they come in and they want to fix everything about themselves. And you and I, over the weekend, you've got this beautiful property on the lake, and you've got this beautiful home that you built, and right next to it, you've got this garage that was clearly there before. You didn't build that. It's clearly there before. Yeah. And it needs some work, all right? It needs a little work. It needs a little love. But the bones are good. So we were talking about it. We went in there, and you're like, hey, I'm going to rip this siding off. We're going to put paneling on like the house so it matches. We're going to redo the roof, clean up the inside, maybe put a garage door, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But when you are considering rebuilding that or repairing that, you're figuring out what exactly needs to be repaired. You're not tearing the thing down and starting from scratch. You're like, no, the bones are good. The framing's good. The slab, the concrete, that's good. I just need to change a few things here and there. And so you specifically focused on what needed to be changed. And that's what I would suggest to this person. You don't need to fix everything. You need to figure out what you need to fix first. So maybe you look in the mirror and you're not real happy with how you are because you're 60 pounds overweight. Okay, well, that's something you can focus on. Or maybe you feel so disconnected from God and you're like wondering what your purpose on life on this earth is, and there's no meaning or significance in your life. Maybe you ought to pick up the Bible. Or maybe you're in a relationship and you love this woman and it's pretty good, but like 30% of the time you guys hate each other and there's arguing and there's bickering and there's nastiness between you. Okay, well then you need to work on your ability to communicate more effectively so you guys can have civil discourse and get through these issues. Or maybe you pull up your bank account and you're afraid to pull up your bank account because you know it's in the negative, or you're afraid to open your mailbox because you know you're going to be met with 17 bills. Okay, then you need to focus on how do I learn basic budgeting, paying off debt, restructuring, tax strategies, investing, getting a promotion, getting a raise, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So the first step to quote unquote rebuilding yourself is to really be honest about where you're deficient. And once you are really honest about that, then you can start to focus on what needs to happen first. The beauty of this is every example I just gave you will relate to the others. I guarantee you, if you're 60 pounds overweight, because that's the example I used, and you start going to the gym every day and you dial in that nutrition, I guarantee your relationship is going to get better. I guarantee your finances are going to get better. I guarantee you're going to have a better emotional and spiritual connection with God. If you start to get that spiritual side better and you start formulating a connection with God and realizing that you have a purpose on this earth, I guarantee you're going to start leading your family better. I guarantee you're going to look at finances and say, hey, I need to be prudent over this because God has given it to me and it's my responsibility to do what's right with it. Or that he's blessed me with this incredible body, and so I need to treat my body correctly because it's a gift from God. So wherever you plug into this equation, it's going to get better. But the first step is always to be honest and truthful about what your deficiencies are and then focus on those things.
I love it. I had this conversation with, I think it was with Asia actually last week, where most transformation for people, kind of like that moment of shift, is moving from or moving into ownership of their life. It's always kind of like anyone that you've ever talked to, like read a book, Goggins, your story, my story. Most people, the shift was that they were living a life waiting and hoping for someone else to save them. They had excuses for how their life was. They were allocating blame to someone else, and they weren't dealing in reality. And the moment of switch was, and this is the key, was this is my creation. I am where I am because of me. I'm out of shape because of me, not because of how I was raised. I'm not going to hold on to that excuse anymore.
You're not
I'm not going to allocate
big-boned.
that blame anymore. My marriage is in shambles because of me, because of how I showed up. It's not my wife's fault anymore. It's not my parents' fault that I never got a higher education. They've let go of the blame and they've taken responsibility for their lives, and then they take the action to make something happen.
Agreed. Nothing more to say on that. It's hard to do, but man, once you do that, everything changes.
Yeah.
There I go, using that it's hard to do thing.
That's hard to do.
Is it? Or is it just accepting it, you know?
Yeah, accepting it, and it's empowering. Like it's a tough pill, maybe, but it also means it's within your realm of control, right? And that's the light at the end of that tunnel.
You know what's funny about that though too, Kip, is like, yeah, we say it's a tough pill, but you know already. Like you've already swallowed the pill.
Well, that's why you're convincing yourself that's why
Right.
you're lying to yourself all the time, because you don't want to accept it. What you
But
already know is to be true.
That's why you feel like shit. You know the concept,
Yeah.
ignorance is bliss. It's bliss because because you don't know. But the reason you're miserable is because you do know and you're hiding it and not doing anything about it. You're not miserable because it's not a problem. You're miserable because you recognize and acknowledge it as a problem and you're not doing anything about it.
Yeah. And because you're unwilling to do something about it, you allocate blame so that way you can live with yourself and justify your existence.
Yes. Yeah.
All right. Adam as a F. Corey. Jeez, Instagram. Why do you believe our country struggles with the idea of unconditional ownership? From a neurological perspective, what is wiring us to choose victimhood?
Oh, it's all ego. I mean, this ties in nicely to what we were talking about, but it's all ego driven. It's self-preservation. You know, you're talking about from a neurological perspective. I'm not an expert. I'm not a neurologist or anything like that. So I don't know the exact things that are happening inside of your brain by any means. But what I do know based on human psychology is that we don't want to be ostracized from the group. And incompetence is a risk, a very real threat throughout human history to ostracize yourself from the group. Even today, if you're incompetent at work, you're fired. If you're incompetent long enough as a husband, you're divorced. So in order to, and let me say one other thing with that, we're always stronger in a group. We as human beings are not meant to operate alone. We've operated in tribes and packs and gangs and groups and cultures throughout all of our history of human evolution. So if that's hardwired into us, just because we're in an era where I don't really need you, Kip, to survive, we're still hardwired to behave that way. And we still do need other people in a circle of ours in different aspects of life. So when you're incompetent, you're risking, your brain at least believes that you're going to die. Because 1,000 years ago, you might have. Yeah. If you go on a hunt and you keep fucking things up for everybody, and that's how the tribe eats, but you keep scaring the deer away and you can't kill it when it comes to you, bro, you're out. Because we're not going to feed you anymore. You're just consuming and you're not producing anything for the tribe. You're out. It's the same thing. If you're incompetent at work, people are going to know. If you're incompetent at home, people are going to know. And you don't want that to happen, so you create stories and lies and rationalizations and justifications, and you market all of that, not only to yourself, but to other people to convince them that you're still a valuable member of the tribe, when you might know deep down inside, you're probably not as valuable as you think you could be.
Yeah, it's all in the quest of not being found out.
Of course, because you don't want to be removed from society or die.
It's crazy. Yeah. And then just think of all the scenarios by which that shows up. Like as a husband, as a student, a kid that doesn't understand something, a subject in a classroom, and you don't raise your hand because you don't want to look like you don't know the answer when you think you should, or or going along with social pressure, political viewpoints, and well, I better wear a mask if everyone else is, right? Like that is so, like it was once told to me that human condition is focus 100% of the time of the avoidance of looking bad and making sure you look good. You wake up in the morning, you drive what you drive, you dress like you dress, you say what you say, all in the spirit of looking good or the avoidance of looking bad. And I love the context, so you can quote unquote survive within the tribes and the communities that you belong to. And that's literally what it comes down to.
You know what's interesting about this though is, and I agree with that, looking good, not looking bad, again, to go back to the tribes of ancient civilizations, but the risk of you being ostracized 1,000 years ago or 2,000 years ago or 10,000 years ago was significant.
Yeah.
Right? Like if I was in this really small, rural, remote area in the desert of southern Utah, no dwellings, no electricity, no power, scarce resources, fighting over each other and other warring tribes like Native American Indians used to do. Like,
yeah,
if I get kicked out of the tribe, I'm dead.
Like you have to survive now, not like, well, they'll give me some grace for 6 months, right? Like that wasn't an option.
Or am I going to go to another tribe? No, you're not. You're dead. But in modern times, there's a tribe for everything. Yeah. That's actually a really nice thing, because now you can be a freak, the weirdest freak, the weirdos, like the weirdest person you could ever be, and there's somebody just like you. So just keep sharing what's on your mind. Say the things that you want to say. Do the things that you want to do. As long as it doesn't impact other people, live your life. There is a tribe built around some of the weirdest, most obscure things you could possibly think of. And that might be something you're into. There's other people that are into that as well. So that empowers me, because now I've given myself permission to say things that I want to say, that I believe, that maybe before I thought, well, if I say this, people aren't going to like it. You're damn right people aren't going to like it. But there are going to be people who do. And those are your people. We didn't have that luxury before. We do now.
Yeah. So this is an interesting question, and we'll see. I'm interested in here. Maybe I'm more interested than Miles is on your response here. But Miles Brockman, guitar player, what's your opinion on personality disorders in men and their effect on personal development and growth? And I did a search for personality disorders. Some of them I can't even pronounce. But I'm assuming you probably, these are narcissist, dependent, borderline avoidant, antisocial, paranoid personality disorder, Like these are the ones from WebMD. What are your thoughts on personality disorders and their effect on personal development?
I will say this. I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a therapist. So I don't know clinically, but I will admit,
disclaimer. Yeah.
Right. But I'll admit, like, I recognize that there are things such as personality disorders that are clinically diagnosed, that there's a real issue here. But I think probably 99% of what we consider a personality disorder is nothing more than your behavior conditioned and programmed on your life. Like narcissist is one you hear all the time. Oh, that guy's a narcissist. Why? Because he's selfish? Well, then you're a narcissist too. Like we're all selfish. Right? What were some of the others?
Totally. Avoidant personality disorder.
Yeah, let's take that one. Let's take avoidant. So what? You have an avoidant personality disorder because your dad beat you or you watched your mom and dad fight, throughout your childhood, verbal, emotional, physical abuse, and now you're concerned about getting married, so you have a disorder? No, it's just part of the human condition.
Yeah.
So I think there are things that are a real problem that are clinically diagnosed, and I think you need to be really careful of labeling yourself. Here's one. This isn't a disorder, but here's what I hear all the time. Well, I'm never going to get that promotion or meet. Oh, here's one. I'm never going to meet a woman because I'm introverted. No, you're never going to meet a woman because you're telling yourself you're introverted and giving yourself permission not to go talk with women. It has nothing to do with whether or not you feel comfortable doing it. No man feels comfortable approaching an attractive woman. Some men do it anyways. So the more that you label yourself, and we do this all the time, we start throwing labels on ourselves. Well, I can't do it because I'm introverted. Well, that guy's a narcissist. Well, I'm an avoidant personality. Well, I'm anxious. Well, I'm this. Well, I'm that. And this and that. Blah, blah, blah. I don't care about your bullshit. Stop telling yourself that. If instead of saying, well, I'm introverted, say, hey, I'm uncomfortable talking with people, but I do it anyways because I realize the importance of finding good people in my corner. That's how I am. I'm not totally comfortable being in public spaces with a bunch of random people. It's not actually even something I really enjoy. It drains me, but I do it anyways because it's part of my mission. I realize that it's important to do. So stop putting the labels on yourself and start doing something, like use language that's empowering. Well, I'm not a great public speaker. I'm not supposed to be. You're not supposed to be either. Like you're just uncomfortable talking in front of people. So instead of that, say, hey, I'm really uncomfortable because I care about the way people perceive me. And therefore I'm really going to prepare for this meeting and be prepared to deliver an important topic to these people. I don't like the labels. Again, disclaimer, there's probably some people, a select percentage, who deal with real mental issues that need to be addressed. But the overwhelming majority of it is just a label that somebody else attached to you and gave you. It's like the little permission slip. Like maybe your parents treated you a certain way and they said, well, you're different. It's okay. And they gave you a permission slip to be an asshole or to be a loser. Like, get over it and start living the life that you want in spite of the discomfort of life that everybody else on the planet deals with.
Totally. Nothing to say, man. I totally agree. We have to be careful that it doesn't serve you. And while we're at it, right, be careful what labels you put on your kids because we do the same thing to them. As an example, I remember you met Kulani, this weekend. When she was little, she wouldn't crawl. She did this butt scoot thing with her arms and she would just crab. It was really weird. It looked like a dog that had tapeworms rubbing their butt.
Wiping its ass on the carpet.
Yeah. So she would just do that everywhere. She wouldn't crawl and she would growl at you. You're like, oh, cute baby. And she'd be like, ugh. And I'm like, dang, So we called her Monster. We're like, she's a little monster. And we would say it tongue in cheek. And I remember Asia and I eventually at one point said, we should probably stop saying that, even though it's true, because once she starts understanding, I don't want her to think that we see her as that label, even though we did, because I don't want her to internalize it and then say, oh, well, this is how I am. This is how I show up. And so we intentionally like, oh, it's our sweet little girl, tongue in cheek, kind of joking, even though she acted like a little monster, just to make sure that the label was the label we wanted, right? Yeah. Not something that was disempowering. So be careful what labels we give our kids.
People love it. I watched this video today on Instagram. There was this woman, she's 6'5", and she's a lesbian. And I had to hear her say over and over again, I had to hear how many times she wanted to tell everybody she was a lesbian. I'm like, I don't care. Like, that's what defines you? Like, cool. You like women. Great. Like, is there anything else that you can offer us here? But we get so wrapped up in these labels. The other thing that we do, Kip, is we don't just label ourselves and other people. We label concepts. So let me explain what I mean. So the kids the other day said that they wanted something. And I said, oh, no, we're not getting that. That's too expensive. Is it? Who says it's too expensive? And when I say it's too expensive, what I caught myself in the moment. And I'm like, wait, what am I teaching my kids? That some things are out of reach.
Yeah.
Well, it's not out of reach. Now, can I afford it today? No. I can't even remember what it was. I can't afford that today. But that's a better thing to say. Like, hey, that's a cool goal. I can't afford it. Maybe we can figure out how to work towards it. Yeah. That's better than saying it's too expensive. That might be as well, right? Yeah. So we got to be careful with the verbiage we're using for ourselves, but also for little hearing ears of our children.
Yeah, I love it. All right. M. Trice 86. As someone who is a military spouse, I've had to take on the role of a part-time stay-at-home dad. I'm thankful I get to be able to take care of my son, which is 6 months, and my daughter that is 8 years, while my wife works extremely hard for this country. Even though I also work limited hours, I find myself wanting to do more for myself and my family by branching out of my comfort zone for hobbies and side hustles, but not at the expense of burdening my family financially. It just seems too difficult narrowing down to what to do. Any advice, I'd really appreciate it. Side note, I'm a big fan of the podcast and has impacted a lot of aspects of my growth in my life. Thank you, guys.
I don't understand. Maybe you can help me clarify if you know. I don't understand how picking up some extra work by turning a hobby into a business, that's kind of what I'm gathering here. Picking up something to turn it into a little money generating stuff.
Well, I mean, he said hobbies / side hustles. So maybe he wants to take on hobbies and those would cost money, but they may not necessarily be a side hustle. So, or the side hustle doesn't work.
I'm having a hard time with this. I mean, so you don't think you can have hobbies because you stay at home? I mean, maybe you're not in the financial position to, travel the world. Maybe you want to be a world traveler. Like maybe that's not in your cards right now, but you can't sign up for $100 jujitsu class. No judgment. I'm curious.
Yeah.
And look, one of the quotes that comes to mind is, you can do anything, you just can't do everything. And that goes back to what you were saying about priorities. So yeah, maybe you can't do all the things that you want to do right now, but man, if you can't start a jiu-jitsu class, or maybe you really like nature. Like actually, here's really something you could do. You have a 6-month-old and an 8-year-old, is that right? Let's say you really like taking pictures. Okay, so go save some money if you need to. Go buy a $500-600 camera and buy a little pack that you can put on your chest or on your back for your 6-month-old. Your 8-year-old's old enough, and start hiking around the area. And now you're going to take pictures. Or maybe you can take pictures of your kids because you want to start a photography business, and then you start marketing on a website, which is so easy to do these days. You can go to Squarespace and build one for almost nothing, and it'll take you maybe an hour. and build a photography portfolio and say, hey, I'm doing some newborns right now, or I'm doing back to school pictures because we're coming close to back to school now, or I do landscape pictures or photography or whatever. Like, I think there's a lot of things you can do here if you can be creative and you can get your kids involved in the process. I know it's hard with a 6-month-old, but an 8-year-old, you can start introducing him or her, I can't remember if it's a boy or a girl, him or her to some of this as well. It'd be good for them.
Yeah.
But I don't think it would burden the family. I think the biggest thing here is talk with your wife. Because I would be willing to bet your wife would be supportive of you having hobbies that you're interested in. I'd be willing to bet that she's supportive of you starting a little side project. And the barrier to entry, man, when I started this podcast, and we've made millions and millions of dollars over this 10-year time frame, 8, 9 years, somewhere in there. I started it with probably less than $200. It's like a $60 microphone, $15 hosting service, $20 web hosting service. And that's it. And then social media, which was free. So it cost us less than $100 to get this thing off the ground. And then the barrier to entry is just non-existent.
Yeah. I mean, reading between the lines here, I think your last statement is the key thing, right? He obviously, this is more about alignment with your spouse than it is about the hobby or what hobby or anything else, right? I mean, key things I heard here, it's like, hey, my wife's busting her ass, she's working, and I'm a burden, maybe a little bit already. And then if I go have fun and build up hobbies, am I more of a burden? And the other thing I read in here that I saw a little bit is I wanted to do more for myself, right? Like there's a little bit of lack of maybe fulfillment in what you're currently doing, right? Just watching the kids. And I'm not saying you're being ungrateful or anything like that. Like you might be highly grateful. You may be a great dad, right? But there's an itch that's not being fulfilled and you're trying to find it. And I think the key thing for you to find whatever that is and whatever that looks like is an alignment with your spouse and you guys talking it through and figuring out what's going to give you fulfillment, purpose, and meaning in your life, in addition to you being a father.
I mean, I would say, generally speaking, that's going to be true of men who stay at home.
Yep. I would struggle with it. I know I would.
Most men would. It's just, it's not part of our biological makeup. Like we're not the nurturers. We don't have those maternal instincts the same way mothers do. I think generally we don't find as much fulfillment in raising children as we do going out into the world and making money and bringing home the bacon, so to speak. I'm not saying what you're doing is wrong. I'm not even upset. If it works for your situation, by all means. But I don't think what you're experiencing is abnormal for any guy who stays at home. But like I said, I think your wife is probably willing to discuss this with you and she wants you to be happy. And I also think there's some things that you can do very creatively that will allow you some fulfillment, but not detract from the household finances or from your role as a part-time stay-at-home dad. You know, if it's talking about the gym, get your ass up before everybody else gets up. Well, but then I won't get as much sleep. Yeah. Bingo. So what's more important, your sleep or your workout? You get to pick. And that goes back to what I said. You can have anything. You just can't have everything.
Yeah. Love it. All right. A couple more.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Corey Castello, as it pertains to man's responsibility in discerning absolute truth, what is or the fundamental basis of truth he must recognize before building upon it and leading others to their discernment?
He's asking, what is the origin of truth, is what I'm gathering.
Fundamental basis of truth.
God.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of the principles can be described even scientifically, not all of them.
Or even look at scientifically how truth has changed. I mean, you don't have to go back far in history of what we said was one thing, and then later on, 50 years later, scientists are like, oh, actually, our bad, slightly different, right?
Yeah, but that's not truth then.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like things that we say are true
But again, that is not truth. That's just our current understanding of it.
Yeah.
So we say, oh, it's true that the sun and the planets revolve around the earth. You know, that's what humans used to believe. Well, we said that was true, but clearly it wasn't true. So I think we have to be careful of saying what is true and what isn't. But I think the source of absolute truth comes from an unwavering place. It's by its very definition unwavering. It just is, and that's God.
Yeah.
So our understanding of him and our understanding of science and technology and mathematics and our comprehension of some of these principles will change from time to time. I think we need to be open and receptive to that. But absolute truth comes from God. And if you don't believe me, that's okay. You need to figure out where it comes from for you. I don't believe in moral relativism. It just is. Like I know that there's gray areas. I know that there's exceptions. I know that there's bending the rules, but there's no moral relativism. Like it just is, and it's unwavering. And that gives me faith, and that gives me hope, and that gives me confidence to move forward in my life. And I know when I'm messing up because I'm basing it against what I believe to be absolute truth, which is derived from God. If you don't believe that, find out what it is for you, because your life's going to be a whole heck of a lot easier when you're operating around a set of principles that you believe are unwavering. Even when you mess up, you can acknowledge, hey, you know what? I screwed up because I went against this principle, and so now I need to rectify and correct, or repent if we want to look at it from a religious perspective.
Yeah. Do you feel like realizing or promoting the idea, like let's think about just being fathers and teaching our children that most things that we deem as truths aren't, they're just interpretations, and people see, and really doubling down on that concept is a benefit to their development as individuals. I probably do that too much. I think we get sideways way too often with ways things should or should not be, AKA truth or not right and wrong. I think they hurt us because they stop us from actually like seeking a deeper understanding of the situation or the individual. What's your thoughts around that? And is there a negative drawback to us saying, you know, that most things aren't absolute truths and that they are just interpretations? Is there negativeness to that?
One thing that you'll hear me talk about on the socials is this indoctrination of our youth from the public school system.
Yeah.
Like our kids are being indoctrinated to an ideology that is not going to serve them in their best interest. And every once in a while I'll get a comment that says, well, aren't you doing the same thing when you're teaching them about God or religion or this or that? The answer is yes, I am. The difference is it's in my authority to do so. Yeah. Do I believe that it's absolute truth? No, because I'm a human being. I mess up, I screw up. You know, as best I can, I try to be a decent human being, but you know, some people screw me over and I have ill will towards them, or I had an experience and it filters and tweaks and distorts the way I perceive other things. I realize that. And when I talk with my kids, you know how many times I have to tell my kids I'm sorry? I did last night. My youngest did something and he shouldn't have done it, but he did it. And I handled it incorrectly and I snapped at him and I shouldn't have done it. And so I said, hey, look, I'm sorry, buddy. What you did was wrong. Do you think? Yeah. Okay. And what I did was wrong. I could have corrected you more effectively, better, maybe a little bit more empathy. And I didn't. I yelled at you. I'm sorry. So yeah, I don't think the way I parent is the absolute truth. Somebody the other day said, I posted something and said, well, this is just an opinion. Like, you're presenting it as fact. I'm like, no, I know it's an opinion, but I don't need to preface all of my thoughts with this is my opinion, because people are smart enough to discern opinion versus fact. No, they are. They're just playing games. Yeah. They're playing dumb. People do that on social media all the time. But yeah, it's all indoctrination. It's just a matter of, as a parent, if you have the authority to do it, and I do. And to your point, I believe that largely, not always, because I get it wrong from time to time, but largely the principles I'm trying to instill in my children are going to lead them to a better life. If I say, for example, we don't steal from our friends, it's because I think that's going to lead them to a better place. Now, if I was broke and had no money and we were in the zombie apocalypse and I saw a loaf of bread that, was there unguarded, I would steal it. 100% I would steal it. It's still wrong, but I'd be able to justify that. So I know it's not absolute. I get that. I understand that. I'm just trying to lead myself and my kids to a place I think will serve them. And hopefully I get it right. I won't get all of it right. Like, as they say, we all screw up our kids. It's just a matter of how you do it.
Yeah. I have a feeling how you'll respond to this question, and it's probably not in the spirit that K Gray 775 is thinking.
Okay. All right, let's hear it. Bring it.
I think it's a good question. He says, I'm trying to make up for lost time. Do's and don'ts. Now, I know that's super vague, but I think you have some nuggets for him nonetheless. So trying to make up for lost time, do's and don'ts.
Don't do that. Because you're going to try to go fix a bunch of shit that you can't fix and waste a bunch more time. So then in a year, you're going to come back and say, well, I was fixing that thing from 2 years ago, and now I'm fixing the thing from a year ago. Just put a period at the end of the sentence. Like, we all have those friends who just drone on and on and on and on. Or you all see those posts where people don't put paragraphs and periods and sentence structure, and it's just like this blurb of like bullshit. And you just scroll because you don't want to read it. Put a period at the end of the sentence, or if you prefer, close the chapter of the book. What's done is done. Learn the lesson. I'm not saying that. Learn what you need to learn and then just change it. I, for example, with my kids could very easily, especially my oldest, say, man, I really screwed that up for 1.5 to 2 years. I need to make up for that. No, I don't, because I can't. It's impossible. What I need to do is be a good father now. And I need to do the right things today. And I need to show him. I'm going to get emotional because the other day, him and I had a conversation. And I'll paraphrase, but essentially he said, Dad, I've seen you change a lot. And I know that you're not perfect. And sometimes you default back to the old way of being, but I see the work that you're doing. And you're better than you were before. And that's all you can do. Yep. All I can do is say sorry, and I have, but I don't keep apologizing to my children. I said sorry. There's nothing else I need to say. If I was sincere in my apology, then there's no other apology necessary. Hey, here's what happened. I acknowledge it. I apologize. I'm sorry. I'm going to do better moving forward. And then do it. And that's it. And then just let that chapter be closed. It's fine. It's good. It's okay. You'll be better off in the long run. And there'll be so many amazing blessings that come into your life when you do. Divorce is a great example. I'm actually in the process of putting together a course for men who are divorced. It's called Divorce, Not Death. And we're going to talk a lot about some of these issues. My life is better. I'm not saying that I would have wanted to go through that divorce. I'm not saying that was like entirely even a good thing because there's real world consequences to it. But I'm saying my life is better today than it was 3, 4, 5 years ago. Not because of the divorce, but just in spite of it. I just learned what I needed to learn and implemented new lessons, and I'm living a much better life with my girlfriend, with my kids, with my business, with every aspect of life.
Some of the most difficult things to forgive and accept is our past, actually. And by holding on to it and not putting that period at the end of it and letting it go, we drag it into today. We drag it into tomorrow. And instead of being fully present and showing up powerfully, we're like on this quest of not letting it go, and it will show up. It really will. And I believe this so seriously. Like it is so critical that we learn to forgive and accept the past for what it is. And we can't change it. And there's a lot of power in just letting that go and living into the present. And you won't, and we won't, if we don't learn to let it go somehow. And you'll drag it along, and it comes with the baggage of what it means and the stories and all those other things when we're not putting the period at the end of that sentence, right? And letting it play into today and tomorrow.
I've said this before when I was going through my divorce. Actually, I think if I remember correctly, it was after my divorce was finalized. My ex-wife said something to me, and it was very painful. It was hurtful. She didn't intend to hurt me, but it was hurtful, and it was really hard. It was the most difficult thing I think maybe I've ever heard, and it was also really liberating because in my mind I was like, got it. This is done. Yeah. And then I closed it. And from that moment on, I'm not saying I didn't have hard days, and sometimes I still do. But from that moment forward, life got incrementally better. But it wouldn't have happened if I didn't close it and stop it and end it. You have to end it. Something has to die. That relationship has to die for you to move on. And I don't know what he's dealing with, but I think that's universally applicable.
Good questions.
Really good questions. Powerful one today. You guys got me crying. You got me being vulnerable and everything here. Come on now.
The Graham showed up again in a powerful
It
ways.
usually does. It usually does. For better or worse, Graham shows up.
Yeah. So the Iron Council enrollment is closed officially, but if you're interested to learn more, you can sign up for a newsletter and learn more about the IC nonetheless. That's orderofman.com/Iron Council. But kind of your primary option for kind of banding with us is obviously to connect with Michler on the socials at Ryan Michler, but also look into the Battle Ready program. This is a self-paced approach to what we do within the Iron Council, and it's a great mechanism to prepare you for joining us in Q4. To learn more about the Battle Ready, go to orderofman.com/Battle Ready. And of course, you can find your Order of Man swag at the store at store.orderofman.com.
Excellent. Thanks, Kip. Guys, great questions today. Appreciate all of you. Kip, as always, appreciate you. You guys keep those conversations and those questions coming. We'll keep giving those answers, and we'll keep working. All right, guys, we'll be back on Friday. Until then, go out there, take action, and become the man you are meant to be.
Approach to what we do within the Iron Council, and it's a great mechanism to prepare you for joining us in Q4. To learn more about the Battle Ready, go to orderofman.com/Battle Ready. And of course, you can find your Order of Man swag at the store at store.orderofman.com.
Excellent. Thanks, Kip. Guys, great questions today. Appreciate all of you. Kip, as always, appreciate you. You guys keep those conversations and those questions coming. We'll keep giving those answers, and we'll keep working. All right, guys, we'll be back on Friday. Until then, go out there, take action, and become the man you are meant to be.